Good day to all, and welcome back to another edition of Music Monday, where you can find exquisite taste of recommendations for your wonderful, beautiful taste. I will be evaluating and talking about music that I've listened to from the previous week. And this week I will be changing things up a bit. Well, usually I'll talk about modern music and all the new stuff that's coming out. This week's different. We'll be going back and talking about good old rock and roll, the great tunes that has been produced by one of the greatest bands and one of the finest examples of the genre has ever produced. We'll be going from today's standards to all the way back to the late 60s and coming up to today's standards of rock and roll. We'll be talking about the Doors and bands such as Kiss and Mötley Crüe. But we'll move on to that later on. And let's start off with the first recommendation of this week. This is a great example at rock at its finest. The Strange Days by the Doors. This is a quintessential piece of rock history. The Doors, one of the best bands ever made, and they're one of the greatest albums. This is a second debut album from 1967. This album is absolute scary at some approach, how it takes psychedelic and acid rock and take them together. Also, this is after the success of the previous album. They decided to use new techniques and new technology and new methods of making new noise. For example, they decided to take a keyboard and play it backwards to make new sounds and make new noises. Also, they took a noise cancelling tape, played it fast forward, and it made a certain magnitude of noise. They also took classic instruments from the catalogue and played them in different ways, backwards and forwards, and played them in different speeds. Also, they decided for once to hire a technical editor to make new tempos and make new sound effects. Personally, some of my favourite songs from this album is "My Eyes Are on You," "People Are Strange," and "When the Music Is Over," the end of the album. Also, give credit to the king and one of the legends at the time, Jim Morrison, and his collaborative great members of the band, Ray Masgee, Bobby Kirk, and John Demore. I think this is a great example of late 60s rock and roll, with the drugs being one of the most influential parts of the album, the psychedelic element that's part of this era, and just how this started to build the foundations, what quintessentially made rock and roll at its best. And the Doors is considered one of the best bands ever, and I agree with that. So let's move on to the next recommendation. Dynasty by Kiss. This is Kiss's seventh album, and this is from 1979. From what I understand, this is the first album that was made that the band weren't together whilst producing it. They were all parts of the separate parts of America, and they were in separate parts of their career. From what I understand, each of the members of the original duo were separated and started to pursue their own solo careers, and this album also tried to represent as a comeback for the band, since they did not record new recordings since 1977. So yeah. Also, this represents the downfall, as one of the members, Peter Criss, was not as hands-on with this album, since I think the year prior he had a car accident which injured his hands, which prevented him to play the drums. So at the time they got a new African-born Austin Figgs to replace him, who I think personally done a good job. Also, true fans of Kiss would not call this a traditional making of a Kiss album, but I personally quite enjoyed it. Some of my favourite songs were "I Was Made for Loving You," and I think "Hard Times." Yes, "Hard Times" is one of the albums. So yeah. Also, this, by just to show how much they want together, that they didn't even decide to make a new album cover. Supposedly, the album cover was put together with old pictures of the band members, and yeah, uh, this each of the members, yeah, again went solo. Also, Peter Criss at the time was separated from the band since at the time he had a big alcohol and drugs problem, and supposedly he was just a not a nice person whilst being on that. So yeah, but the original members are there. Paul Stanley's there, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley. Peter Criss is there some of the time, but not fully. So yeah, I really enjoyed listening to this. Like I really enjoyed the mix of hard rock and disco, and this is a prime example that rock can uh, explore different genres and have parts of genres within it. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I Yeah. So let's move on to the next recommendation. Road to Ruins by the Ramones. This is the Ramones' fourth studio album from 1978, and this is one of the pioneer. Really love this album. Brilliant example of punk rock, pop rock, and hard rock. Yeah, this is one of the. I personally really enjoyed this album since the Ramones from this, wanting to try something new. They tried to play. I think it had great guitar playing. Had great jams with it, and also some that it featured, which wasn't commonly used in punk rock bands at the time. They added ballads, which aren't commonly used in punk albums. Yeah. Also, this is the album that sadly does not feature Tommy Ramone as drummer, since he sort of left the band in a way that was, after the low sales of the previous album and the stress of touring with the band, it just came over the top with him, and he decided to leave, but still continued to produce and work with the band on creating songs. So, but in his replace, they replaced him with a close friend. I think his name was like Mark Ball or something, Mark Ball or something like that, and replaced him with new member Marky Ramone. Of course, it's got the continuing members of the band with Joey Ramone, Johnny Ramone, Dee Dee Ramone, which I think adds to this album's quality and greatness. As long as the band, I like at this time bands had the idea of the show must go on, even without members. Yeah, some of my favourite songs is I Want Everything, I Want to Be Sedated, and I'm Against It. Yeah, like I mentioned, also at the time, I forgot to mention with my previous recommendation, some albums like what was it? Dynasty, like I talked about previously, and this album did not receive well and are considered by the close fans of these artists as the not best works. But I just researched it now that the albums Dynasty and Road to Ruins have gained success with streaming, since younger fans of punk rock and rock and roll have found these albums and have actually gave them more popularity than they originally had. So yeah, I'm glad with this new technology of streaming and multiple streaming services and music, such as Spotify and YouTube Music, it's helped artists to find their place in and find their albums to be recognised as great as they were. And this is a great album. I really enjoyed listening to this with its great guitar playing, and I just loved listening to it. It was fun and exciting. So yeah, let's move on to the next recommendation. Hotel California by the Eagles. This is the band's fifth studio album from 1976. This album, to some, not some, but most of the majority of the world, is considered one of the best albums that the world have ever made. Since people have a relation and feel a connection with the album all across the world. Even though the title's track, Hotel California, it tells a beautiful story. It's beautifully orchestrated with the instruments that are choreographed and the timing. It has a beautiful guitar solo, excellent drum playing, and let me say this: I have some of my favorite songs all the songs I love. I think there's a song for somebody in this album. Uh, also, it's to express the it's to express also this album expresses peace and love to all, and I think it's one of the best examples of great music and great timing where every song it tells a great story, great drumming, it just has great everything. I think that includes to the members such as Don Founder, uh, what was it, Glenn Frey, uh, who is Randy Meister, and Joey Walsh, and who else? Don Henley. Yeah. I just love this album. I really do. It was just so beautiful, and the title track "Hotel California" it's as amazing. I know some people think some albums get overrated, but there's a reason why there's such albums that's overrated because they're overrated because they're magnificent. And this is a magnificent album, and I think it's such beautiful. It's considered one of the best one of the top 10 walk albums ever, and it's a walk album, a walk and roll album, a walk album. It's no disco. They took walk and just played it with great. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful album with beautiful stories, and it takes you onto a journey that the band take you to about different individuals and their emotions and just different times and stuff. I just loved it. Really think you should give this a try. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful album. And if you're not a big fans of certain things, put that aside. I think this album it's a experience when you listen to this. And the Eagles are considered one of the greatest rock bands ever, one of the greatest bands ever. So yeah, again, I highly recommend this. Let's move on to the next recommendation. Dr. Feelgood by Mötley Crüe. This is Mötley Crüe's fifth studio album from 1983. Some people will describe this as, well, I would describe it in my own way, which is it's like a never-ending, enjoyable party. With energizing, with vibrant new tunes, excellent guitar player, excellent drum and piano playing, and it's a great example of glam rock at its finest from the great 80s era, and from also one of the greatest glam rock bands, heavy metal bands ever been produced. And I just really enjoyed the stories and the movement and the timing of everything about this album. Some of my favourite songs in this album is "Time for Change," "Without You," and "Kickstart My Heart." I think what contributes to this album's greatness is, of course, the greatness of the individuals involved with the making of this album. With, of course, the original gang of Mötley Crüe, with lead vocalist being Vince Neil, being lead vocalist, which would be his last time for the time being. Backing vocals by Mick Mars, bass by Nikki Sixx, and what was it? And I think drums and piano by Tommy Lee. I would just think that also with streaming becoming even more popular than ever before, this album and this type of music has reached unheard of success for how would I say this, like musicians of a greater era. So yeah, I really recommend this. If you love rock and roll and you want to have fun and joy and an energizing experience, listen to something, I highly recommend this. Dr. Feelgood from 1985, the fifth studio album. It's amazing. So let's move on to the next recommendation. Keep the Faith by Bon Jovi from 1992. This is the fifth studio album. From what I understand, a lot was changing at the time for rock and roll and the genre itself. For example, Nevada, I don't know if it's Nevada or Nevada came out, and they changed the spectrum and changed how rock and roll was appearing, how it was evolving and different. And with that, the band needed to change it to its time. And plus, this is the first recording of the band together since '85. Previously, Bon Jovi worked on the track or for the soundtrack for Young Guns 2. And some of my favourite songs, I think, is the title track, Keep the Faith. And what else? I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. And what else? These Loving Arms, I think. Yes, These Loving Arms, yes. Uh, so yeah, they need to evolve. I love this. I really love this album. It was a different approach to how they've approached rock and roll, because usually Bon Jovi and other bands previously, rock particularly, is big, brash, and loud. And with this, you don't get that with this album. They take rock, which is a big brash, and made it subtle, made it elegant, make it a luxury. Also, listen to this. It's like the best way to describe it. It's like a nice road trip, a wonderful road trip you go on and enjoy yourself with. And this album is like that. And I think this is an underappreciated album from the artists. When people think of Bon Jovi, they think of the stuff from the 80s, like, was it Shot Through My Heart? You Give Love a Bad Name? What else? Yeah, like the classic hits, really. But also, at the time, Bon Jovi fired his manager, so he was going for that at the time, which I think may have had influence on like how the album may be been produced. And I just think that they took some parts. It's not got all the classic elements of like a great guitar solo. It's not got a drum solo or anything. It's got all of those, but they take them and refine their knowledge and skills that they've experienced in the last, I think, so 92, I think in the last 10, 15 years, I think they took that knowledge and skills and refined it. Plus, they use different techniques. Like, I can hear some subtle hints of acoustic instruments, and they take a serious tone with this, and the story it tries to tell. And I just really think that it's a very underappreciated album. So yeah, if you want something different, a different from traditional rock and roll, I think this is directly for your taste. So yeah, let's move on to the final and last recommendation. Volcano by Jungle. This is the fourth studio album that's just came out recently, and I've got to say that there's one album that I think is up there with being the best that's been released this year. Worst by Mazakin, and that's it. But I think this is one of the best albums I've heard this year. It's such a beautiful exploring of music and choreographing and exploring new remixing tunes, elements of music that I have never heard before. The sound is I can't say the word, innovative and forward thinking, with the beats being complex, and it has a lot of free spirit and energy. I have to thank the band, not the band, is it the duet? Yes, I think I have to thank the individuals in the creating of this piece of work, because it's amazing. It's forward thinking, it's beautiful, it's just so free, and what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word. Free and explorative, if that makes any sense. And it's just one of the greatest pieces of music I've heard in quite some time. Well, since Mazakin's Rush. Since then, nothing's really caught my ear in a way that other things have. What else? This also shows Jungle's these skills and their step into becoming one of the greatest artists in our generation. It has soul, which is a soul that's beautiful. If an album has a soul, which I think music does, this has a beautiful one, I have to say. And all the songs, again, just like Hotel California I mentioned recently, it's got a lot of great songs. I would say that it's got at least one song for anybody who listens to it. Some of the songs, what I can say, Dominoes, Candle Flame, back on 74, that's quite popular right now, and Coming Back. This album, I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you take this recommendation and take it home and give it a listen, because it's one of the best pieces of music I think will come out of this year. So yeah, that's it for the recommendations. Let's move forward to the last part of Music Monday. The first part is this album cover of the week, and that is we will select from the 7 recommendations I have talked about the best album cover. And to give you a think, really, the best album cover that I've listened to, really, well, there's a lot of like Kiss. Nah, because it's all footage of it's all photographs, so no, it's not got any feeling with it. I will say Keep the Faith or Volcano. Between these two, between Bon Jovi's Keep the Faith, which shows the band putting their hands together to keep the faith. I think it's supposed to symbolise. And I like Jungle, where it's a bright orange, cover with white, lovely font whiting that just says Volcano, and below it I think it says Jungle in small font. So yeah, and to the song of the week. So this is a song that I've listened to, and Kim, I don't know what to say. There's a lot that I've listened to. I've really enjoyed this week. I've been getting back into a lot of old stuff. Dean Martin, Robert Goulet. Kim, you know what? Go give it to Robert Goulet. I think Don't Send Roses. Yeah, I think you should give that a good song, a beautiful song about heartbreak and loss, and that you lose somebody who's so important in your life. And you just need to get out of doing something often, like sending that person roses or talking to them or remembering them. And yeah, that's that for the week. This Music Monday. I thank you again for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and follow. I also have an announcement that this will be the first episode. I quote the first episode that will be appearing on. No, it won't be. I mean, this will not, also on Music Monday will be founded on multiple streaming services. We're not just going from YouTube, we're now on Spotify. So look forward to that. Thank you for listening. I will see you again. Please remember to keep listening to these tunes and walking it on. This is Nicholas Thompson over and out. Goodbye and good night.